All be quiet, please. We can all be quiet, please. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Okay, folks, this is going to be a very, very special evening tonight. An extremely special evening tonight. And I think we are ready to start it off.
This is your life, Wendelle Stevens. Born and raised in Minnesota, happy birthday and thank you for 50 years of research that you have shared with us.
Ladies and gentlemen, to start it off this evening, C.C. Stevens.
Born and raised in Minnesota. Born and raised. Too many people. Born and raised in Minnesota, Wendelle enlisted. We should have a video back here shortly. Oh yeah, Wendelle. Got you big. There you go. Wendelle was born and raised in Minnesota. He enlisted in the Army shortly after he graduated from high school. He graduated from the Lockheed Aircraft Maintenance and Repair School, Aviation Cadet Training, and Fighter Pilot Advanced Training as a very young second lieutenant in the U.S. Army Air Corps. After he attended the first Air Corps Flight Test Pilot School in Kelly Field, where he learned to fly all the aircraft in the Air Corps inventory at that time, as well as U.S. Navy aircraft. During his long career in the military, one of his assignments was the supervision of a highly classified team of technical specialists who were training high-tech data collecting equipment aboard the SAC B-29s of the Panama Project, a polar research project which was photographing and mapping every inch of the Arctic land and sea area. This equipment was designed to capture, record, and analyze all EMF emissions to the Arctic and to photograph with both still and movie cameras all anomalous phenomena and to record all disturbances in the electrical and engine systems of the aircraft, looking for external influences caused by UFOs. The effort was quite productive and the data was countered to Washington each night. What I did is I put together some photographs of Wendelle. I put together a speech that I tried to do. Needless to say, the bio in here is the speech that I did as well, so we're going to wing it. I put this together in tribute of my father because he has put out 50 years of research for us. He's put a lot of time and energy in order to be able for each and every one of y'all to be able to have your answers questioned. You stand back and you ask, have you ever wondered? Wendelle has helped you to find those answers. This is him in growing up. We all wonder what was Wendelle like when he was younger. Here it is. Here's all of his achievements as he's gone through time. He's somebody that I am very proud of. We have here in retirement, receiving honors and medals. He's a gentleman on the left over here, the cute one. And as you can see on the lower right, this was his first exposure to check pants, which he never gave up. And this was January the 18th, 1997, Tucson, Arizona, on his 75th birthday. with Susie, his companion, Chuck, my husband, who also shares the 18th of January with Wendelle. So we did have a wonderful birthday party. I would like to thank my dad for all the things that he's done and to tell him that I love him.
Thank you, Cece. Next up, the infamous Jim Mosley. Jim?
Hey, Jim. Well, thank you. I'm glad you turned the light back on. I was going to try to read this with my third eye. There was a rumor that this roast was for me, but obviously it is not. And I can live with that. I'm 66 years old, and Wendelle is 75. Maybe in about 11 years you'll honor me similarly, but then again, maybe you won't. I really and truly and honestly don't know Wendelle very well. I've met him a few times over the years, and I have found his views interesting, provocative, fascinating, intriguing, but I've never agreed with him for a moment. God, I didn't know I'd be this funny. Well, I am chairman of a largely unknown group called the National UFO Conference. And we hold conventions every year since 1964. Maybe many of you have not even heard of us, but we've had these all over the country. And the reason I bring this up is, of course, to advertise our conventions, but there is a point here. Back in the early 1980s, and I'm not sure just which year, but we had a National UFO Conference in a small town in Wisconsin. And probably Wendelle remembers the year better than I do, but at some time, quite a few years ago, he was one of our speakers. And we were very glad to have him there. And what he did was he lectured. I didn't listen to all of it because the only lecturer I ever hear all of is myself.
Oh, no.
But one of the props that he brought with him was a tape recording of an alleged entity from another planet speaking in his native language. And he played a short portion of this tape, as I recall it, and I may not be accurate in my memory, but he played this, and he was unable to translate it because it had not been translated. And we didn't have a whole lot of news coverage, but I remember distinctly that after his lecture, somebody from the local newspaper came out, and Wendelle was sitting in the hall after his lecture was over and talking to this newsman, and I happened to walk by, and he's playing this thing, and it's a normal human voice speaking an unknown language. And the newsman says, "Well, what's the translation?" And Wendelle says, "I don't know, we haven't translated it." And the guy either literally or figuratively ripped up his notes and left. So, I mean, what can you really say about that? Do you remember, Wendelle? All right. Well, anyway, I just want to tell you, I don't want to take up a lot of time at all. But I am not a total skeptic. I have had many weird experiences in my life, and this may be one of the weirdest. I have a book that I've written that's basically a pro-saucer book. It's called Crash Secrets at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I am not, as I say, a total skeptic. If you go tomorrow to Dr. Turi's table at the back of the vending room, you will see a few meager copies of my book sitting there, and I would be very pleased if you would actually go so far as to buy one. Also, I am the editor of a magazine called Saucer Smear, which is self-descriptive.
Oh my God.
And I have not really brought any copies here for sale, but if you want to talk to me quietly, I'll tell you how to get hold of it. I want to give my sincere thanks to Bob Brown for including me on this program. I didn't expect to be included, and it was very kind of him to do this, and I appreciate it, and I thank all of you, and God bless.
Thank you, Jim. J.D.? Mr. Jim Delatosa is next.
Thank you. Hi. Well, one day in the 70s when I was rehearsing with a rock and roll band real loud in my lab, these guys came up that all looked old to me then. That was about 20 years ago.
That was good.
They wanted to know if it was Wendelle Stevens and Jim Lorenzen and some other people that were older than them. And they had heard that we knew about special effects and scientific equipment, and I think that what they really wanted to do was they wanted to make it look like we were testing because the news crew was doing a story. So we turned on our gadgets, and once again it was like, excuse me, who are you guys? Oh, yeah, that's right, UFOs. You know, that seemed pretty weird to me, that these guys would come and search out a loud pounding rock and roll sound system company to test out images, but little did we know that they knew we had other expertise, and it would unfold through Wendell's belief in me and us that it would be not only fun for the next 20 years for me, but would unfold things for me in my personal and spiritual life that is really unbelievable. To jump from the Moody Blues to UFOs seems natural, but in fact, by the time we were doing the Billy Meyer case, and every rock and roll band that I had ever met, and the King of Sweden and Lord Clancarty all wanted copies, I took credit for it. Let me tell you a story about Wendell and I used to travel a lot in the 70s, and our mission was, he had convinced me God had talked to him. And when we were driving in the car, that our mission this day when he was picking me up is that we had to sneak into Jet Propulsion Laboratory, borrow the lab, send everybody home for the day, borrow the equipment, test UFO pictures, and have no one know. And we did. Time after time. And Wendell would tell me, give me these briefings, and I'm scared driving the car. I wouldn't let Wendell drive after a while. Because we would be driving, and all of a sudden I'd wake up in the car and we're driving off the road. Okay. No, you're a good driver, and I'm sure you're a great pilot and everything, too. You know, but on these missions that we would go to, this is in the 70s, no one wanted to hear about UFO picture testing. And some of the things that you all may not be aware of is that we went some of the most unusual places with the most unusual cover stories in order just to test a few pictures. Jet Propulsion Laboratory was one. I don't remember exactly why, but it made sense at the time. For some reason, we had to do security at the US Festival for 500,000 people, backstage and in front of the stage, in order to meet someone to get pictures that I don't think we ever got. But this guy called me up one day, told me that he had been picked up by an extraterrestrial. A lot of people knew that I knew Wendell. And that this guy had been picked up by an ET. A lot of people came to see us and said that they, not only had met ETs, but that they were ETs. We had a number of meetings with people that said that they were ETs and showed us gadgets. And in fact, some of the gadgets in the 70s were very unusual. But this guy called me up and said that he had been abducted by ETs and that he had to talk to Wendell because the ETs had made him invisible. And only Wendell would know what to do. So I called Wendell up on the phone. I said, I got this guy on the other line right now, and he has to see you right now. He's out in his car and there's no mobile phone, and he wants to come in. He wants to have an appointment right now. And Wendell says, well, I'm in Tucson. I can't get up there. So I told the guy, I said, look, he's really busy right now. Wendell can't see you right now. And the guy said, well, I knew he was good, but I didn't know he was that good. It's typical. It is typical. Magical things happen. Magical things would happen. In a 5-year period of time, we were able to meet with Lou Wasserman, the chairman of Universal Pictures, Ted Koppel, Walter Cronkite, Universal Pictures, Paramount, Columbia Pictures, Nightline, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, National Geographic, and brief some of the largest media organizations in the country on extraterrestrials, and no one knew. No one knew that Wendell had the vision that what had to happen was to start briefing the national media and the national entertainment moguls of that day. And how we got into those meetings, I don't know. Oh, that's right, you talked to God. We're on a mission from God. And sometimes, you can really feel like that. And the doors that opened and the places that we went, TRW, Sandia Laboratories, Los Alamos Laboratories, Lawrence Livermore, Northrop Aviation, IBM, regardless of what our friend, Mr. Cal Korth, might have told you, we have been these places. And it was more fun than funny that somehow in traveling with Wendell that I knew that we could get in these places. For example, the SPY conference, and that was what it was called. The Society of Photo-Optical Instrumentation Engineers, when we got in our car and drove and headed over to San Diego and went into a place where hundreds of the top optical instrumentation engineers in the world were meeting, and Wendell and I were walking up and down the hallways with UFO pictures asking people if they would test them for us. Later, Dr. Michael Malin, who is now head of the NASA Mars project, that we met at that event, agreed to test the pictures and introduced us to other noted scientists ranging from the U.S. Geological Survey to McDonnell Douglas and NASA, and the foundations were laid for what we now know today. I believe, having been there, and I've been involved with this for a long time, I believe that the vision that Wendell Stevens had and the seeds that were planted back in the 70s that these corporations and media have resulted in the openness and the nearness for disclosure that happens today. So I think we should thank him for that gift that he has all given us. One other thing, and then a final thing. UFO investigators aren't supposed to see anything. Wendelle and I were driving back from California one day, and the gas gauge was on empty. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning. We were coming into Phoenix, and we were worried about running out of gas. We were looking at the watch, trying to calculate when the sun would be coming up on the horizon, and we started seeing a giant power plant near the Estrella Mountains outside of Phoenix. Huge. Huge. I didn't even know that a power plant existed there. Huge array of lights. As we turned around the corner, the lights disappeared, and I figured we were behind the mountains. We were trying to look at our watches, the odometer, the sun coming up, calculate how far we could go when the gas stations would be open. I fell asleep and woke up as Wendelle was falling asleep driving off the road. Again. We always kept proceeding. We've driven thousands of miles together in doing this. We've been taking pictures over in California along the road and documenting what we had done. And when I got back to Phoenix, when we woke up, by the way, this is appropriate to tell now, we had missing time. We were now about 40 miles down the road and decided to stay parked on the side of the road and sleep for a little while and get up and drive into town. And I got into town, and a couple days later finished up the pictures of film that were on the roll, and found on frame 12 in the middle this picture. This picture I don't remember taking. It's in the middle of my roll, and it shows a tower, a smokestack, a flying weird thing, and a flying weird disc right in front of the car. Bob, would you describe that to everyone?
It is a metallic circular looking disc on edge over the power lines to the right of the road, and a small black looking plasma looking dot with some appendages sticking out of it, sort of semicircular, 3 bright lights, one on either side and one on the bottom. Very high strangeness picture. Beautiful picture.
I know, we do special effects, but I didn't make it up. And I was trying to think of a lot of funny, amusing stories to tell about Wendelle, but Wendelle, it's always been fun, and it's always been strange, and it's always been thought-provoking and fulfilling for me. And I think that's really what I wanted to say about Wendelle Stevens, is he changed my life. He also fucked with my life too, but excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, but it is the only term that I can say. I would have never imagined until meeting this man that these things would unfold in my life, and I would have the problems and the accusations that have come up in the last 20 years after knowing this man. So, ladies, please forgive me, but I'm sure you've heard it said before, and it's the only term that fits because it's hard to run around with him. And I've always wondered about this. I've always wondered what really happened in that few minutes of time that we fell asleep. In that few minutes of time when we were trying to figure out about the watch, the gas tank, the sunrise, the miles to go, and we're down the road. And for almost 20 years now, except for a small number of us, we haven't talked anything about it. We haven't talked anything about it. But truly there is something special and magical about working with Wendelle Stevens. And I hope you all have the opportunity to meet him and know him and spend even just a few minutes with him in your life. You won't forget it. Thanks, Dad.
Thanks, J.D. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Tim Crawford.
Thanks. You know, we were getting ready for this, and I heard the distinction. This was going to be a cross between a roast and a toast, and I turned to Robert Dean, who was sitting next to me, and said, "What is the difference?" And he said, "Well, a roast is where we literally rake the guest over the coals, and a toast is where we pay tribute." And I think I'll leave the roasting to people who are more qualified and stick to the toasting. But you know, I come at this from a unique perspective. I've spent the last 7 years looking and cataloging every documentary film that's ever been on this subject. I've cataloged over 1,200 films on UFOs and related sciences, and I have to tell you that Wendelle is in more UFO documentaries than almost as many UFO documentaries as there are UFO documentaries, and so there's quite a legacy there. And you know, I'm often asked, you know, why are they here? And well, logic dictates they're either conquerors, scientists, missionaries, or you know, maybe they're vacationers. I mean, can you imagine being on Zeta Reticuli and thinking, I want to take my kids and family out on a galactic vacation, and they go to the travel agent, look at these beautiful 4-color brochures, probably holographic, depicting the fruit-filled canopies of the rainforest and the valleys and vistas of this beautiful blue-green planet, only to get here and go, holy smokes, this place is nothing like it looked in the brochures. And it turns into this National Lampoon's Galactic Vacation, and they're hoping they can get you know, book reservations on Mars and you know, make up for the disaster. But in all seriousness, you know, 1993 there were 23 wars going on simultaneously on the planet, and you know, aliens, as Stanton Friedman has been quoted as saying, you look down on the planet and we look like a primitive civilization involved in tribal warfare, and of course the tribes, that's us. But I must say that 50 years of UFO research has brought us some amazing information from Wendelle, including the first documentation of ETs that are not demons from the depths of hell, but confirmation of visitors such as the Pleiades, who are concerned about our spiritual well-being and the future of our planet. And of course, you know, they used to have a great vacation spot here till we trashed the planet. But you know, the question is the message getting out? And I think, again, if you look at the demographics and you look at the X generation, and you look at you know, the X generation holds a romantic view, someone similar to the Jetsons or Star Trek. I'm a romantic. I'm like the Star Trek idea, but the Pleiadian message is much more a multi-dimensional message that suggests that there's more to us than what can be described in a linear time-bound concept. So, you know, the Pleiadian message is real important. And, you know, one thing I found was very interesting is how many ufologists does it take to screw in a light bulb? I found it takes two. It takes one to screw it in, and it takes the other one who actually says that it never actually happened. The first ufologist is just a CIA plant, and it's all part of disinformation. And, of course, for the debunkers who apparently live by a motto, I debunk, therefore I'm not, how many debunkers does it take to screw in a light bulb? Well, it doesn't matter. They've been in the dark since the beginning. But, you know, as Andy Warhol said, everybody gets their 15 minutes of fame, and Wendell, I want to tell you that you're a permanent part of our history, and your memory will not go away. And we love you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert O'Dean.
Thank you, Bob. Many, many years ago, when I was very, very young, I was an infantry combat commander. And I was a proud young man, and we in the infantry always thought of ourselves as the queen of battle. We were kind of smug and arrogant and all that sort of stuff, and we looked down on airplane drivers. They were always too smart-assed. They were too young, they were too pretty, they were too handsome, and they always had girls around them. And I think that's probably the biggest reason we detested airplane drivers. Over the years, I have learned to respect airplane drivers because they have pulled my butt out of the fire more than once in Korea and Vietnam. And I've known a number of wonderful airplane drivers, and there are a few of them in this room tonight. People that I do deeply love and respect and admire. But I want to talk to you about a specific old airplane driver here this evening that I've known for a few years. And I think I know things about Wendell that he doesn't know that I know. When I was preparing this roast tonight, because I always like roasts, I know what they're really supposed to be like, I had an entire preparation made. My wife looked it over and was shocked, and she says, "You're not getting up and saying those things." So I had to tear the whole damn thing up and start over. So let me tell you briefly, and I will try to be brief since she made me tear up all my notes, of how I got to know Wendell Stevens and what I've learned about this man over the years. When I retired from the Army in 1976, bought a house on the east side of Tucson, moved in, lo and behold, coincidences being what they are, I bought a house directly across the street from Wendell Stevens. Synchronicity. Took me a few weeks to find out that this is who lived over there. And when I found out, I went over to pay my respects. Banged on the door, and an absolutely earth-shaking, gorgeous, beautiful, unbelievable, sexy woman came to the door wearing a string bikini. And I said, I was here to pay my respects to Colonel Stevens, and she says, well, he's not here at the moment, but I will tell him you were here. I put myself back together and left, and he was to tell me later that this was one of his daughters. Well, I met his daughters later, and this was not one of them. I was to learn, and this is no joke, I was to learn later that this lady was truly an alien. Now, there's some stories to be told about this gentleman that have never been told. I happen to know that he has been abducted many, many times. And this is a fact. But they always bring him back. It seems he cannot behave himself over there. But this gentleman has had some intimate relationships with extraterrestrial intelligence for many years, and that's not a joke. That's very serious. I think in terms of humor, I've enjoyed my life, my years with Wendell as friends. We've traveled extensively together. He and I and Michael Hesseman have traveled all over Europe together. We were in Europe when Wendell got beaten up by a whole bunch of gypsies in... Where was that? Mugged by gypsies in Budapest, I believe it was. But Michael and I and Wendell have traveled the world, and I must tell you something about these airplane drivers. We have been in some of the finest capitals of the world, with some of the finest restaurants on the planet. I mean some of the most exquisite cuisine you can find anywhere. And Michael and I have had a continual recurring problem with what we call missing Wendell. You heard of missing time? Well, Michael and I would encounter missing Wendell. Guess where we would find him? At the Golden Arches, having a Big Mac with fries. Some of the finest cuisine in the world, and this dude is at the Golden Arches having a Big Mac and fries.
That's priceless.
There are so many things I could tell about Wendell. I will tell you this, that anybody who could abandon Lee elders in the middle of a revolution in South America can't be all bad.
Really?
Lee, are you in the room tonight? No, he did indeed. He abandoned Lee elders in the middle of a revolution and flew home, and Lee was stuck down there. So he can't be all bad. I want to close and say something in the realm of a toast rather than a roast. I've known this gentleman for a number of years. I've learned to admire him. I've learned to respect him. I have learned to love him. When the truth comes out eventually, and the whole history and truth of this UFO matter comes out, Wendell will indeed be recognized as one of the major contributors into bringing out this truth and seeking out this truth. And he will indeed go down in history, highly respected. And I simply want to say in closing that I've learned to love this man. He's more than just a colleague. He's a good and dear friend. And I love you, and happy birthday, you old codger.
Thank you, Bob. Michael Hessman.
I can confirm that everything you just heard is true, the plain truth. And I have to admit that I deserve Wendell Stevens' two of the greatest and most important insights of my life. Number one, that it can be fun to be a ufologist. There are always beautiful women around. And number two, you can never make money with UFOs. I was so happy for Wendell before we went to Budapest, because we had a big conference in Germany, 800 people, and he sold a lot of calendars. And I was so happy because Wendell before, if you know Wendell Stevens, you will find out that he's the type of guy who calls you at 1 o'clock in the night saying, Michael, I'm at the Düsseldorf main station, can I stay in your flat? And that's the true story. And I say, no problem, because I'm a night person, no problem for me. But I didn't even know he was in Europe. I was quite surprised. But he was in Düsseldorf at the main station, left the train, called and said, okay. So after we found the local McDonald's to cater him, we spoke about a lot of things, and so on and so far. And then we went to the clubs. And the chicks are dancing on the table, and it's true. Anyway, we spent so much money in the clubs, but I was happy that Wendell made some money selling a lot of calendars on this conference a couple of weeks later. And then we, Bob and myself, snobs we are, went by plane. Wendell, humble as he is, went by train. Unfortunately, he had to find out that it would have been much cheaper to go by plane, because the gypsies arrived before him at Budapest airport, and he lost everything he made with his calendar, plus much, much more, plus a video camera and all the equipment he had. So, yeah, so as I say, I learned two things. It can be fun, but you can never make money. Anyway, Wendelle Stevens, in my opinion, will go down as the world's #1 UFO researcher ever. And keep in mind, he was the very first one in the field. When there was no civilian UFO research at all, he was the head of a UFO tracking project of the U.S. Air Force. And it captured him and it fascinated him for the rest of his life. And actually, I found out why. And I found many reasons for it. And I know he's the type of guy who is always looking for the naked truth. Nothing else than the naked truth. And he had to find it. And after Wendelle Stevens had all the beautiful women on this planet, he had to search for something else. You know, he's the Bill Clinton of ufology. So I made quite some notes here, and one thing I learned from Wendelle Stevens, he can tell you the most amazing, incredible, unbelievable stories for hours. And I had a hard time listening to them and imagining that only 5% might be real, maybe 10, but later I found out 100% are true. And this really surprised me. I couldn't believe it, but I found it out. This man is not full of a library of wisdom. He is full of 100 libraries of knowledge and wisdom. And if he would write down everything he knows about the field, the Library of Congress couldn't hold it. And it's true. It's absolutely true. You hear the most amazing, most incredible stories. You can't believe a word. You can't swallow it. I'm not Monica Lewinsky. And what did I find out? It's all the plain truth. He is a very reliable source of information. But those who don't go out and those who don't check it, they never learn. They never learn it. It's a very, 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 very interesting thing. You know, another thing I found out after organizing a lot of conferences with Wendelle is that you should never put him in the beginning of a conference as the first speaker. Because Wendelle knows so much about UFOs, he could speak for a whole conference. He could make a full conference for himself. Unfortunately, he knows about it and he does it. So, he is a man who has contacts all over the planet. There's no one who has so many international contacts. Since 1 year, he told me about a totally new project, a UFO conference in preparation in Hong Kong. And after I met the beautiful young organizer of his conference here, I realized why he was so enthusiastic about it. I fully understand him. I'm very enthusiastic now too. But this man really knows the world of ufology as no one else does. And I tell you, he went only for the really good stories. He was never interested in a little grace. I mean, do you want to meet a gray chick? No, uninteresting. Very unattractive. He went into beautiful blonde Pleiadians, looking like top models. And after I read the secret writings of Billy Meyer about the shaving habits of Pleiadian women, I realized why. The shaving habits of Pleiadian women, I realized why. I don't go into details. There are ladies in the room, and you're one of them. And you are one of them. But indeed, we learned one thing from Wendelle Stevens, and this is to be a person with a vision. You have many enemies. If you want to be in the front of something, you have to be controversial. But be yourself. And he always was himself. he is the least hypocrite person I ever met. And I mean it really as a compliment. Wendell Stevens is a man with individuality, with a lifestyle, with a big heart, maybe the biggest heart I can imagine. I just, a couple of days ago here on the conference, he showed me one of the most amazing UFO films, and I said, Wendell, is it possible to have a copy? And he spent half an hour searching for an empty tape to make me the copy. And what did he find, the first tape he found? Of course, some beautiful films he just sacrificed to give me a UFO tape. So he is a man with the biggest heart. I know I shocked you, really, you got a heart attack. I don't tell every secret tonight. He is a man with the biggest heart. He is a man who used to give. And that's why he is receiving. And that's why he was able to build up the biggest archive of UFO pictures and UFO documents and UFO facts any researcher has in the UFO community on this planet. And we all can be grateful that we know Wendell Stevens, that we have him in the UFO community. He is the great communicator, and he is the great friend of every serious researcher. Thank you very much. And thank you, Wendell. Thank you very much, Wendell, for being with us, for supporting UFO researchers all over the planet, for bringing them together. And if you are on this UFO conference here today, you have to know that the vision for it was born in 1991 in Tucson, Arizona, when Wendell Stevens set up the first International American UFO Conference. And this vision was born. Bob Brown took it over after Wendell totally exhausted himself physically and financially by making this unique, historic effort, the UFO Conference in Tucson, Arizona. And this is one of his visions. He brings people together, and he brings the international perspective into American ufology. And I can only say, as an international ufologist, thank you, Wendell, for what you did. Your life is a masterpiece of creativity, of living a vision. You are one of the greatest men I ever met. Happy birthday.
Thank you, Michael. And next up is Ted Lohman.
Damn, how do you compete with all of that? Well, we had a meeting this afternoon, and I was supposed to be third out, and everybody fought to be not last after Michael, because Michael would have told Wendell's life story. And I don't know, that give the blind guy the last seat, he won't know any difference. So he didn't tell it all. I've got some stories myself. I have a little video afterwards, and I want to thank two people, first of all, that really put a lot of time in this video. Larry Giametti, some of you that have been coming to this for a long time might have known, and another gentleman that has helped me a lot in my show is Calvin Mason. But before we get to the video, I met Wendell years ago, and probably right at the beginning of his conference in 1991. My father told me when I first got involved in this to do your own research, don't take anybody's word for it. I made a phone call to a Wendell Stevens that I read in the back of a book somewhere, and the man actually answered the phone. I was expecting to get a secretary. But this is the way Wendell is. Wendell is at home, and he doesn't have an answering machine. If he's at home, he'll answer the phone. If he's not, it won't. He won't answer it. I asked Wendelle one time, I do a television show along with Peggy Kane, Brenda Williams, and Nick Wyatt. We do a television show that is public access. It airs throughout the country. And I remember one time I invited Wendelle on the show, and Wendelle comes onto the show. He's sport coat, tie, and short pants and white socks. I immediately went to my cameraman and said, "Shoot from the top up, please."
That's brilliant.
I also was invited one time to speak on a dais with a number of UFO investigators. It was another television show. It was a round table type of thing. And like tonight, I had the pleasure of sitting next to Mr. Stevens. And every once in a while, Wendelle would start to snore. And Wendelle would say, "How much did I miss?"
How much did I miss?
But most of the things, and I do say most because I don't know all of the things that you've heard tonight, are absolutely true. Wendelle has been an inspiration for me because I do have a chance to interview a lot of individuals within this field, thanks to people like Bob Brown and other people that put on the conferences. And I think each one of you can say that when you talk to an investigator, or you're one and two out in the audience, that individuals seem to talk about each other. I have asked Mr. Stevens throughout the 9 years that I've known him about certain individuals, certain speakers, and I've never heard this man say a bad word about anybody. And I think that there's not very many of them out there that will do that. There's another gentleman on the dais, too, that I know, Mr. Robert Dean, and I've asked him about certain things, and Mr. Dean himself has never, ever, to my knowledge, said a bad thing about another investigator, another person. He simply says, "Find it out for yourself." And I think that needs more integrity in this field that way. Now I'm going to go to my video. I had to put this, Wendelle left. I went over to CC and talked to Susie and said I need to get into Wendell's house to get some photographs, and I knew where he kept his secret Funkin' Wagnall jar that he hides all of his top secret pictures in. And underneath it it was glued to the bottom of it, and we were able to put these together on video, and I can certainly say that some of the video that you're going to see you have never seen before. And Wendelle will probably hope you'll never see it again. Now there are some captions on the screen, so please, I hope I've given you enough time to view the screen. So if that's ready, can you please roll the videotape? There is audio on this. Where's the audio? you didn't know, he was a Smurf. Thank you, Wendelle Stevens, and happy birthday.
Thank you very much, Ted. Wendelle, who is that?
Old friend Billy. Do you recognize me?
Man, I thought I told you to stay home, man.
Don't hit anybody in the head.
Do you recognize George friend? Do you remember the great time we had?
Yeah, get out of here before they recognize you.
I came all the way over to congratulate you to your birthday. You know, I had mine 2 days ago. And I'm so happy to see you. You remember the time? You remember how we did this?
Yeah, but we agreed to keep the secret, Billy.
Meine Damen und Herren, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Billy. Billy Meyer. My mom said, life is like a bar of Swiss chocolate. You get sick if you eat too much of it. You know, I got sick of it quite early. I was a naughty boy at school, and even more naughty in life. I reached out for everything. Life, the universe, and chicks from here and there. Swiss men believe we are great lovers. We have one here. You know, we believe we are great lovers because it takes us 1 hour to do what the American men do in 3.5 minutes. You know, half an hour to get the pants down and half an hour to get them up again. One time, when Wendelle came to visit me, he wondered why we charge you an extra overnight fee in the cat houses of Zurich. Do we stay with you all night, he asked. Noah said. The man just fell asleep after doing it. Oh gosh, hot games, he believed. But I explained to him, no, not what you think. If a Swiss man has to put his pants up and down again, you know, he is tired, he has to go to bed immediately. This is really hard work. You know, life is like a Swiss white chocolate bar. You get sick of it if you eat too much of it. I just wanted an affair, a rendezvous or 2 each month with a babe from far away. She came from 500 light years away to see me. She traveled faster than the light. You know, she had the sweetest smile I've ever seen, and I will never know why, but she was one of a kind. She didn't want me to take pictures of her with my photo camera. So I just told her I would only take pictures of her beamship. I wanted at least one sweet souvenir, and that's how it all started. I don't know why it caused such a stir. They all came and invaded my place. I had to move in the mountains to Hinterschmidt-Reutti. Spell it, Hinterschmidt-Reutti. You can't spell it, nobody can. That's why nobody will ever find it on a map, and I was safe. Only Wendelle didn't give up, and Wendelle found it. That's where I met him. He searched for the truth, he never gave up. And eventually I found myself doing exactly what everyone was accusing me of. Sitting in the mountains with the model of the beamship on a fishing rod and taking pictures of it with my photo camera. Hey Wendelle, old buddy, that's for you here. You want to take some shots for your new camera?
Yeah,
Take it. That's for you.
Oh, thank you.
You know, so you really want to know the real Wendell Stevens tonight? You really want to know him? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, from our home office in Hinterschmidt-Rüti, Switzerland, the top 10 things you ought to know about Wendell Stevens, my old buddy from America. 10. When piloting the plane to 10 U.S. diplomats and envoys to General MacArthur's Japanese surrender team, he kept flooding the intercom with requests to go pursue nearby buzzing Foo Fighters. 9. His nickname back in the Air Force fighter pilot school was Spacey.
Spacey, yeah.
8. Since the time of his assignment to the Office of Foreign Technology at Wright-Patterson, he still blames the birth of his youngest daughter on his orders to field test the veracity of captured Soviet condoms. 7. The picture of the alien on the cover of his book UFO Contact from Planet Jarga is really that of Mr. Ed as a young punk. You know, I tried to make this Letterman movement. 6. Guess what shape the lens flaw the technician discovered when he took his old favorite size wide angle to the camera shop for mechanical repairs. Didn't get it. 5. I believe we are slow, but obviously the Americans are even slower from time to time. 5. After all these years researching various phenomena, Wendell still can't explain his lack of a shadow during full moons. 4. He constantly asked me where the space babes hang out. And I never tell him, I never, go with him there because I want them all for myself. But he constantly asked me where the space babes hang out. You know, the Space Girls, the new band from England, is just an imitation. I am the original founder of the Space Girls. 3. He can personally attest to the veracity of the rare UFO pictures taken in the 1880s. He is the only surviving UFO witness of the airship wave of 1880. 2. The bastard still hasn't returned my only nude picture of Semyase. And I won't give him back till I caught up the ones I still have of Tracy Lord. And the number one thing you ought to know about Wendell Stevens, 1. He has been in continuous contact with Las Vegas bookmakers to trade to lay bet on the time of the next Pope's death. Our many thanks to Ramin for the top 10 again. Ramin is this young Pleiadian who had the idea with the top 10 and who wrote them, so our thanks to him. So I say to all of you friends here, this was the very first and very last time I came to a UFO conference. I never appear on conferences like Wendell does. So I know Wendell became a UFO researcher quite late. It took first a major international effort. McDonald's has to create the international infrastructure for food catering to send Wendell Stevens out for international research. So it took some time, but I will never forget what we did together. I will never forget how he came with his model and told me how I should shoot my pictures. But he misunderstood me because I always had my little beautiful cutie Semyase, and he believed, she is so small. She is not. She's a good babe, and he is just jealous on her. That's why he started. He believed when he turns up there that Semyase will contact him. But, we Americans, we always believe we're superior, but we Swiss, we are really different. Wendell, old buddy, I congratulate you to your birthday, 75 light years.
Thank you, Billy. I thought I told you to stay home. You're not supposed to be traveling on airliners.
I didn't travel in an airline. I don't tell you how I came, but this is a part of my secret. I never travel in an airline. Wiederlorge, miteinander, auf Wiederlorge, grüezi, gute Norweg, what means good night to all of you.
Cheers, Billy. You got something else here you want?
No, Wendell, you've got the mic now.
Oh, okay. Well, I certainly didn't expect this. I thought we were going to roast Jim Mosley, and I had a presentation all prepared. But but I would like to answer the question about the alien voice, because evidently Jim left the room, didn't hear the rest of the presentation on that. So the story that I described, and I had pictures to prove this, and even had a tape recording, was a high-ranking Buddhist priest in a special Buddhist shrine in the northern part of Japan. Became a contactee. He saw a light outside of his temple, and then he saw it again. He saw it a third time, and he decided to walk out and get a closer look at it. The light always hovered over a shrine. It was down a ravine, crossed a little bridge, and up the other side. And he took that walk to it, found an alien outside of the vehicle on the ground. The vehicle is hovering above. And he walked up to him and talked to him in Japanese. And the alien said that they would return. They invited him to come to their home. First they invited him to go aboard the spacecraft, which he declined the first time, but they came back again, and he did go aboard the spacecraft. There they had a bit of a conversation where the aliens invited him to go to their home planet and see how their society lived. And the priest accepted this, and they told him to prepare to be gone 2 weeks. And he's a high-ranking priest, and he has duties and responsibilities. So he had to arrange to transfer these to somebody else for the 2-week period. He packed a lunch, packed clothes, he took a tape recorder, he took a camera, and the aliens arrived and took him aboard and took him to another planetary system. He remained in that society for 2 weeks, during which time they put him in an accelerated learning process, using learning devices that they put over his head, a kind of a helmet that inculcated information rapidly into his mind. They taught him their language, they taught him how to read it, how to write it, and how to speak it. And as they were finishing his visit there and preparing to bring him back, he asked his escort if they had a message for Earth, or if they could give him a message to take back to this planet. And they said yes, they could. Did he want to use the tape recorder? And he said yes, if I may. So he turned on the tape recorder, and one of the leaders of that society spoke in the alien language a message for this planet. And the voice was a very strange sing-song voice with a lot of M's in it, like like that. Very, very, very discouraging to try to translate it. But the priest, having learned to read and write and translate the language, when he got home, he got a big blackboard in his temple, and he wrote out the message in the alien language symbol form, and then wrote the Japanese translation underneath it, and I had pictures of that too, which I guess Jim missed. But it was in Japanese, so it wouldn't have made any difference anyway. However, I did translate it to English from what I'd been told the Japanese read. That's what that situation was, and I'm sorry you didn't get the rest of the presentation that day, Jim. Or maybe you didn't want to hear the rest of it. So I want to thank you all very much. It's certainly a surprise to me. I did not expect this, really. Yes. Pardon? What's this? Oh, you'll have to ask Michael. I don't know what he's talking about. Thank you very much, folks. Actually, when I was told that this was going to be a roast for Jim Moseley, I didn't prepare a roast. I had prepared a toast for him. So I'd like to give you that anyway. Jim Moseley is one of the first publishers of a UFO magazine in the world. He published flying saucers, way back in the early days of the phenomena. I was one of his early subscribers to the magazine. It was one of the best that was put out, and he put out maybe 12 or 13 issues, suddenly stopped, left for Florida, and began publishing another journal. So I really, his magazine was the best. He also exchanged pictures with me way back at that time. He was one of my first photo exchangers, and you remember the photo you gave me from Peru? Wonderful stuff, and I really wanted the magazine to continue, but for some reason he decided not to proceed, and I think we ought to honor him because Jim here is one of the oldest researchers in the country. Of course, all of us who survived get that far eventually, and he has brought some marvelous humor to this whole phenomena, and has contributed an aspect to it that should have been done long ago, and I appreciate you for that, Jim.
Thank you.
Members of the panel, I want to thank you very much for your tribute here tonight to Wendelle. Just add a couple of words in closing here. Wendelle has changed my life. He is the most incredible human being I've ever had the pleasure to know. And I'm thankful that I can call him a friend. And indeed, he is someone that I love. Wendelle is open to every one of you. I've said this to you before, and I don't really have words on how to say this, but this man would help you in any way he could, every one of you, at any time. Yeah.
Right on, Bob.
He's an inspiration to me and a role model to me. And I just am privileged to my toes that I've had a chance to share some life with him. And I hope that I get a chance to share 75 more years with him.
Nice. Yeah.
Everybody, you don't have to go home. You can hang out. We're here for a while. Have a great time. Thank you.
You gave it to Wendelle. Almost 20.